Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas.
It is that time of year.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah, and we have a lot to celebrate. We have these chairs. I don't know.
Which we had last time,
Maybe
but we didn't talk about
out
them.
of the way. Maybe the wide angle.
Oh, if we're quiet?
Hey, there it is.
They're wonderful chairs.
So comfortable.
Much more
We
comfortable.
didn't bring it up on the last podcast, but
No, but
these are nice.
my butt appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
Much more comfortable than the stool chairs we had before. Still not like a comfortable couch, but much better, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's nice. I love it. But yes, the Santa Claus. It's that time of year. It's like many classic films. The Santa Claus. I always watch it every year. It's just such a good classic film
The
from
Santa
the 90s.
Claus.
The Santa Claus
With Tim Allen.
Mm-hmm. Tim Allen in a bunch of Christmas movies.
I love that you love this movie because I love this movie, and it is probably my favorite Christmas movie. A lot of people like Elf or Die Hard.
Yeah.
I am partial to Hook. I think Hook is a good Christmas film, but the Santa Claus is top tier.
Oh yeah,
Christmas movie.
It's classic. You were talking before the podcast about like the sarcasm, and I'm a really big fan of like that kind of humor where it's just like, you know, under their breath, you know, the extra scenes that, you know, Tim Allen like spices it up a little bit, probably with, you know, his own comedic stylings, but they're much different than the Santa Claus 2 and 3, and then of course I guess there's a new series that you were talking about, which I've never had the opportunity to watch.
Yeah, they've turned it into a television show on Disney Plus, The Santa Claus Is. And there's 2 seasons now. Each season is about 6 episodes. But yeah, nothing is quite as magical as that first film because it's so adult, but in like a very,
Yeah.
you know, acceptable, family-friendly sort of way. But Tim Allen just brings the most amazing sense of comedy
Yeah.
in basically everything he's done. Jungle to Jungle,
Yeah.
one of my favorite films, poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
If you look
that
up Jungle to
sounds
Jungle,
hilarious.
Home Improvement, classic television show. Anything Tim Allen does
Well, what
or
was the
did
other?
was so good.
Christmas with the Cranks, is that a Tim Allen? Is he in
Ooh.
that?
Is he in that? You have to look.
think
This is where
so.
we need a producer to look
Yeah,
this up
that's
for us. I want to say he's not.
Who was it?
Christmas with the Cranks. I want to say that's like a, what's his name?
Yeah, Tim Allen.
He's in it?
Yeah.
And then who's Ferris Bueller?
Christmas with the Cranks, 2004.
Who plays Ferris Bueller? Who am I thinking of?
Oh, yeah. Ferris.
That's, is it,
Bueller.
what's his name? I can't remember it.
Matthew Broderick.
Broderick, yes. Is he in the Christmas with the Cranks? Because that's who came to mind when I thought of it.
Is he?
Is he the neighbor?
It's been so long.
Do you
since
like
I've seen
Christmas
this.
with the Cranks?
No. I don't like it. It's completely the opposite. And it's a film that I didn't watch, you know, back when it came out, but I watched it more recently, like within the last few years. And Tim Allen is just like the worst human in like the very opening scene, where it's just like he's just
What does he do?
He's just like, he's not a very nice husband and dad. It doesn't seem like. You can rewatch it if you want. He's just so like on the last nerve, it seems like, with everything, which everything's going wrong in the very beginning of that movie, so it's kind of understandable, but also he's just being mean for no reason too. It's like with all these circumstances that are happening around him, he just chooses to be like very short with his wife, with his kids, whatever. But he's just cranky, you know. Christmas with the Crankies.
It is called that, so it makes sense. But what is your favorite part of the Santa Claus film? Is it just Tim Allen and the comedy, or is there something else to it that gets you?
It's all the above. It's just one of those like classic, like 90s films, which I don't know if they all just had the same kind of commonality with like the absentee father. Now I don't know why most of those 90s like kids films had just like an absentee father, but I'm just a fan of the like the mythical part about it, right? It's like the set design for the North Pole and like that kind of stuff, which when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, it's the North Pole, you know? So like that is the aspect I like, kind of like Disneyland we were talking about. It's like, how do they make Disneyland look like Disneyland? So like, that's what I'm more fascinated with, even with Elf, right? It's like that whole world of the North Pole. It's like how they executed it. It's like, that's what I was more interested when I was a kid. It wasn't until I got older where I appreciated more of like the sarcastic, dry humor.
Okay. The thing I like about the Santa Claus the trilogy, and now it's like a whole universe. The Santa Claus universe. The Tim Allen Santa Claus universe is exceptional because it truly is a universe of lore. They've built every movie, for as childish as number 2 and number 3 are. They still continue with the lore. They bring in Mrs. Claus.
It dove deeper and deeper into the lore as it went on. The first Santa Claus movie was based very much in reality. And then the further along it got, it went into more like magic and myth and legend and lore.
The first one, nothing more real than becoming Santa by putting on a coat. A peak of reality.
No, I'm talking about the fact that he was real. As it went on, he became more of a Santa Claus like mythical character versus he was like human to begin with, and like no one believed. He had to convince everyone to believe. So it was based more in like reality. Granted, there was like magic and everything, but everyone was still on planet Earth, you know, trying to figure out, it's like, is he telling the truth? And then towards like the second and third movie, everyone was like, oh yeah, of course Santa exists. You know, that's the funny part.
And that's what I like about the TV show now, even though it's been, 30 years or something, they're still continuing on with this legacy of Tim Allen is Santa, Mrs. Claus is Mrs. Claus. It's the gal, I don't know her name, but she was in Lost. They make some good Lost jokes. They bring Bernard into it. Charlie's in there.
Bernard's back.
Yeah, and like everybody from the original film still exists in this world.
Are they still elves? Or
they're still elves, yep.
They age that much? Because I thought that was the interesting part about I think it's the second Santa Claus, or I think it was the third Santa Claus. So the second one, there was the elf, like the engineer elf that was like the James Bond guy with like all the gadgets, where he was like, oh yeah, we're developing this technology. And then in the third movie, he was just significantly older and taller. It's like, it's like you're breaking the whole world here for me.
Yeah, no, the elves are like 900 years old.
Okay.
But they look like children.
Yes. But
so
for
Bernard,
he's grown.
He's grown up.
Still an elf.
But no, he's
is he not an elf?
He fell in love with a human, so he gave up his... This is spoilers a little bit.
Did he leave the North Pole?
Yeah. Well, this is spoilers. I don't know how much I want to ruin.
Did he get fired?
No, he falls in love with a human, and so he gives up his elfness, his elfhood, to become human and age. I know that was the thing. Yeah.
How did he get away? Well, I mean...
You have to watch it.
It's on Netflix.
Disney Plus.
That's right.
These are Disney films, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I would say that for commitment to a relatively silly concept, they've stuck true and they keep building on it. And I think what's almost wonderful about watching the films and now the show is that the people who are in it are into it. You can tell by their acting. They enjoy what they're doing. They like these characters. They like the world that's been crafted. And there's just something very heartwarming about watching that, even though the stories and the plots are a little childish and kind of silly. It's just, I don't know, it has a sense of magic and wonder. And I think even that first film, the idea that this regular dad becomes Santa and then all the implications of that, the way it's executed is just done so wholesome and well, and just like they didn't phone it in. They tried, which is what we talk about a lot. You know, trying hard, and they did.
And are you a fan of, like, they when they finished the first movie, it felt like, okay, that's a good conclusion to the Santa Claus film. And then the Santa Claus 2, they were like, oh, you didn't read the fine print, right?
That's a good joke.
Is it a good joke?
Yeah.
Or are they trying too hard to make a second movie?
No, that's because Mrs. Claus comes into it, and she's like a cornerstone of the franchise
but
now.
You would think that they would have let him know, which is in the movie. He's like, how did nobody tell me this? It's like, well, it's in the fine print. It's like,
which is good.
You didn't know this? And also, as Santa Claus, how does he not know that?
Because he's not also no one's reading the fine print. Are you reading the iTunes terms of service?
They should.
You're clicking agree. Sure, I'll be Santa.
If I was agreeing to be CEO of Apple, I think I would know.
By the way, you need to get married, otherwise you're not CEO anymore.
Right? Yeah, I think that's.
You need to find a Mrs. Claus in the next 3 days.
I feel like people should have told him that when he showed up day one. It's like, hey, by the way, like, you're on the clock. No. It would have been much easier as opposed to him trying to rush a marriage in 30 days.
It worked out in the end, though. It worked out.
Did it? Because Christmas almost was canceled.
It worked out.
Yeah, barely. By the thinnest of margins.
They're still together to this day.
Yeah, the Mrs. Claus.
Yeah, it's great.
And then the third movie was just ridiculous. The Escape Clause.
That's good. That's funny.
That was probably the worst of the trilogy. Easily the worst of the trilogy, I would say.
They bring it back.
Not
The show is
not a big
better.
fan of the Jack Frost character.
Yeah, he's a little silly. I like Evil
little
Santa. I like the clone
The Evil
toy
Santa was good. I like that.
Yeah.
That,
And he's not... I shouldn't say Evil Santa because in the show there is an Evil Santa in season 2.
Is it not the robot?
It's not the
clone?
toy
Yeah.
Santa.
That was a good Santa.
It's an older Santa who is the Mad Santa. Comes back.
The one that disappeared?
No, but he comes back.
In the original?
He does. Yeah, he's in
So
it.
he waves
Yes.
when he
Uh-huh.
pieces out the
Yep,
first time.
yep.
So
That's all explained. They tie it all together. It's magical.
now I don't know about it, but it seems like he was definitely set up.
Oh yeah.
He was set up. Because when Tim Allen gets to the North Pole, nobody talks about the old guy.
And they address all this in the
they
show.
were like-
It's so
They
good.
were like, that guy must have been the worst Santa Claus ever. And he was clearly okay with peacing out because he was like, all right, deuces,
Waves,
good luck with those elves. So I don't know. Him and Bernard must have had beef. They must have had beef.
You have to watch the show. Find
Which
out.
makes sense because if Bernard wasn't there, if he gave up his elfness, that must have been too much clashing. I'm assuming.
Judy has a cameo. They bring Judy back. She's in there.
Also, what happens to Mrs. Claus if you disappear? Does Mrs. Claus just evaporate from the North Pole as
guess,
well?
yeah, she must.
Did they explain that one? Or
They
was
just-
he not married? Was he on the clock?
They explain all this, David. I can't give you too many spoilers because it's worth watching.
Well, I got a whole bunch of questions.
If you're willing to watch the Santa Claus 1, 2, and 3, you should definitely watch the show because it's worth it.
3 was very difficult.
They bring it
to
back.
get through.
They bring it back with the show.
Okay, well, I have a lot of questions.
There's
I
a lot of
I hope
silliness.
There's a lot of answers.
There are a lot of
I
answers.
want to know what happened to the first Mrs. Claus, though. I'm very interested.
You'll find out. You will find
I'm
out.
sure she disappears. And no one talked about her either. No one was like, oh man, the previous Mrs. Claus is the best. They must have hated all of them. Which, it must be difficult for the elves because you can't choose who your Santa is. You just get a new boss every now and then.
They explain all this. Answers are there.
That is a terrible way to run the business of Christmas. You kidding me? Who knows? Our CEO might fall off a building and there might be a new one who doesn't know what they're doing on Christmas. Mid-Christmas, he fell off the roof.
In the middle.
In the middle of Christmas? Are you kidding me? But I do love all the features that they established for Tim Allen, which Tim Allen, it was up to him. He was the one who was like, all right, now how do you prevent me from falling off the roof?
Oh, yes.
Like it was his
safety
mission
measures, yep.
because he was like, I kind of love this gig. Apparently the previous Santa was okay, just having no safety, but I don't know.
One of my favorite...
He wasn't OSHA compliant, let's say.
True. One of my favorite parts of that original film is the whole corporate business side. I think the movie literally starts with a holiday office party. And there's the great scene right after where he like calls, I'm on my way. I'm in traffic.
Yeah.
No traffic,
yeah,
right?
no.
He's that typical absentee dad, the workaholic dad that was so common in the 90s, whether it was Tim Allen or Robin Williams or Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
They all fell into that kind of trope. But I love that he has that side of it where he has the meeting in the boardroom where he like orders all the
Ordering all the
cookies.
food,
But they're talking about brainstorming a toy, the Santa tank.
Santa tank,
Yeah, like that's such a fun part of that movie that I always kind of forget about because it's a lot of Santa, North Pole,
in a Panzer. It's like, yeah, classic.
and you watch it again, and those are the moments that always stand out to me. It's like this is funny, actually funny, and just the comedic timing is so good in the show. What I like about the first season of the new show is that out of everything I've ever seen, they do such a good job establishing a villain who is motivated by good. It's the coolest thing because I feel like more.
Well, that's how Santa Claus 2 was. He was very concerned about kids on the naughty list, and he thought Tim Allen was way too lenient. He was like, "Are you kidding me?" He was like, "They're all naughty," which everyone is pretty naughty. I would agree with Toy Santa Claus.
Santa Claus that's a good point.
Had it on.
Yes.
He was like, no, like
he was onto something.
He was literally, and again, Tim Allen, absentee. He should have been a better Santa Claus because he left in Santa Claus 2, right, to go find a wife. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna leave Christmas up to this toy. Yeah, and then the toy took it upon himself or itself to make sure that he was gonna check the list twice. But for some reason, Tim Allen was not about that. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to give presents away willy-nilly. Meanwhile, I think the toy Santa might have been the better solution, but he would have eventually had to get married too.
The toy Santa would have to.
Oh yeah, right. He would have had like a Barbie Santa Claus, a Barbie Mrs. Claus, I guess.
In the show, they take it. It's funny you mentioned the second one of like that. Okay, all the kids are naughty. In the show, they kind of take it of the villain, or who becomes the villain in the story, is someone who just wants it to be kind of Christmas every day, and they like everyone just gets whatever they want whenever they want it. It's like immediate
World
satisfaction,
peace.
basically, right? Mm-hmm. This guy is motivated.
That would be a lot for Santa, though. He'd be like Amazon delivery drivers every day.
So watch the show,
okay?
Because that's kind of,
it's unsustainable, really.
Well,
There's not enough batteries to go around.
It becomes sustainable in that they have North Pole magic and all this stuff. But I just really like any type of content, movies, TV shows, that establish a good motivation for the villain, because it's not like he just wants to be evil and be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. He becomes the bad guy by trying to be the good guy.
Right.
And I feel like there should be more content like that. Show me the person who's trying to do good, and then, oh, wait, they actually end up being the bad guy. Because that's what real life is like. Everyone thinks they're the hero. Mm-hmm. Everyone is trying to do good, but the consequences of that end up being sometimes fairly negative.
Right. Because if you want to... Thinking of if you want to feed the planet, it's like, well, I want everyone to have a steak every day. That's going to be a lot of cows that are going to go. It's a lot of cows that are slaughtered.
It plays out in a variety of ways, but for every pro, there's a con. For every choice, there's a consequence. And I think you can't always, the world cannot be perfect. It cannot be Christmas every day. Mm-hmm. Everyone can't get exactly what they want. Did you see Wish?
No.
Yeah, it's
Disney. You
mentioned it. Yeah, but that's kind of the concept in Wish, but they execute it so poorly because it's just the bad guy becomes the bad guy.
Yeah.
And at the end, they like everyone gets, spoilers for Wish if you care, but everyone just gets what they want. Yeah. And I like that in these Santa Claus movies, they touch on themes where it's like, no, Christmas needs to be special. You know, you need to find that balance between the naughty and nice list. Of course, not everyone's naughty, but right? Not everyone's nice. Yeah, it's moderation.
You can't just have pure ecstasy all the time, right?
Right.
It's like there's got to be a chance to level out, normalize, and then you can get happy again, and then that's Christmas.
That's right. And I mean, it's a kid show. It's family friendly. So it's not super deep, but it's deeper than most kids' content, which is what I liked about those 90s movies. Mm-hmm. Even though we were watching them as kids, they had themes and stuff that adults could enjoy, and now we can still enjoy them to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely catching all, like you're talking about, like all the sarcastic humor, but you don't get that as a kid. You get that when you're much older, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is really funny. Like the scene in the first Santa Claus where he takes, like he goes to Denny's, I think it is, or like the diner, and then he like waves at the other dad, like that. Which is, and then like there's the table of like because they went to the Chinese restaurant, I think, and like it was closed or whatever. And then they go and like they're all having dinner.
It's always open.
Yeah, it's so funny.
And Charlie wants chocolate milk, and we're out of chocolate.
Yeah, right.
Regular's fine. Yeah, he's so defeated on Christmas Eve, man. Mm-hmm.
But you would think,
night.
It's, I don't know, because his dad's Santa Claus, everything's all good and hunky-dory. But again, he was so selfish in the first one, which even as a kid, I was like, you're a pretty selfish kid, because he kept trying to shake the ball to get his dad back.
Yeah.
And Tim Allen's like, it's Christmas. This is the one day I need to be out and about, and you just keep shaking this globe.
The snow globe.
Yeah. They
bring the snow globes back in the show too. It's all tied together. The lore is very rich in the Santa Claus universe.
I have to watch it because I need to know what happened in the first one, because they ousted him. I think it was probably the reindeer. The reindeer definitely kicked him off the roof, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's
all part of the plan.
I could understand he needs a vacation.
Yeah.
Like the first Santa Claus. But I'm still wondering about his wife. Who knows what happened to her?
He wasn't the first Santa Claus.
The original one that fell off of the roof? I could imagine, yeah.
The first Santa Claus is St. Nicholas.
The one on Tim Allen's roof in the first movie?
No, that's a different
one. I was like, wow, that was a long run. But
I think he's Santa 17 is what they say.
I think Tim Allen is a tyrant at this point then. If he's still wanting to be Santa Claus. Which, do you lock in your age as Santa?
No, you age as Santa.
Oh.
Well, it depends. But again, I can't.
Is that what happened? He got too old? He's like, all right, well, I'm taking off the safety belt.
Tim Allen Santa does age.
Well, yes, as an actor.
The guy before him.
So they don't like de-age him or anything?
Do they de-age him?
Well, they make him bigger
They do make him bigger.
because he's Santa Claus at that point, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they play around a little bit with the dynamics of sometimes he transforms back into kind of the Scott Calvin look, and then sometimes he looks like Santa. There's usually comedic hijinks that ensue.
Yeah.
But no, he is not. The Santa that fell off the roof was not the first Santa. And yes, Tim Allen Santa does age.
Yeah.
He's not like an elf that does not age.
No, that's fantastic. No, Santa, believing in Santa, that's all hilarious because I think every kid believes in Santa at some point. Because I don't know, is it
Because you want to believe.
Is
Yeah.
it the parents' fault that kids have to believe in Santa? Like why is it put on kids that it's just like this huge hoax that we're putting on kids, every kid? Like, oh, Santa, is it just to make them behave? Or is it more so the holiday is just such a good holiday?
It's a fun magic of Christmas, I'd say. It is more fun to
Play jokes.
believe in something magical, I would say.
But the kids truly believe
Yeah.
there's Santa Claus. So this Christmas, we're going to have Santa come to my parents' house, right? For all the nieces and nephews, right? The younger ones. And they truly believe Santa's coming. Is
Is this a
good thing?
pre-Christmas tradition?
Yes, this is a Christmas Eve tradition.
So Santa will show up and they'll see him? They'll meet him?
Santa arrives 8 p.m. sharp
On Christmas
Eve. Yeah.
To give gifts?
To give gifts, yeah. That's a thing, family tradition. Santa just stops by.
Okay.
Nobody knows who it is. It must be the real Santa.
Is it going to be you? Are you?
No, not me. Okay. I'm not old enough to be Santa because that part still has to maintain. It needs to be a bigger fellow who plays Santa.
My family did something similar when we were growing up, but I was old enough to kind of put the two and two together. I was like, wait a minute.
You were pulling the beard off?
I was like, wait a minute. Where'd Grandpa go?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely a moment of time that all of like our cousins, especially like when we were coming of age, we were taking a head count. We were like, who was in the room? Where everyone was trying to remember. It's like, what was Uncle? Who's here? But yeah, it's always a good tradition. But you're lying to your kids for the betterment of joy. I don't know. It's like what's the purpose?
For fun.
Just for fun.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other things that you. Well, I don't know. Do they believe in like the Easter Bunny? Is there a real Easter Bunny hiding eggs, or is that more of like
that one's more of a I think everyone knows that the Easter Bunny doesn't exist.
Play pretend,
but no one wants
because you
to
meet
mess.
the Easter Bunny, you're like, that's clearly a guy in a costume.
Yeah, but no one wants to mess with Santa Claus because Santa Claus actually delivers. The Easter Bunny doesn't really deliver.
No,
it's like you get candy with the Easter Bunny. You don't get.
It's usually jelly
an
beans.
Xbox.
Oh, true.
You know, that's a big ticket item.
Yeah.
But
how about the Tooth Fairy?
Tooth Fairy exists for sure.
For real.
Until you get to a point where your parents are like, listen, you need to start brushing your teeth. Tooth Fairy doesn't exist. You have a dentist.
Take care of those. Those aren't the baby teeth anymore.
Like they can't keep falling out, you know.
Okay. There's all the legendary figures. There's Sandman, Cupid,
Jack Frost. I still don't understand.
Frost.
Which was in the third movie we were talking about, and I don't know, not the best character. I would have liked to see another protagonist, not Jack Frost.
Antagonist.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But
like a different villain. Though? Ooh, from like that Rolodex of characters. I don't know. There's a movie. What is it? It's called Rise of the Guardians, and it is all these legendary figures: Sandman, Santa. This is an animated kids film. Jack Frost is the protagonist, and the antagonist is like this shadowy figure guy. He's like the nighttime evil guy. The boogeyman kind of, I guess, is what he's like. But they call him something else. I'm forgetting the name. But yeah, the boogeyman, I guess.
See, that's cool. Like, because everyone
film.
in that universe is like a good character, even though they might have, bad intentions, I suppose.
Yeah, Jack Frost in that movie is kind of he's the young gun. He just became Jack Frost 100 years ago. So he's the newbie, he's the rookie, where like Mother Earth is one, I think, and the Sandman, Father Time might be in there. There's a few of those types of people. The Easter Bunny is real. I think he's played by Hugh Jackman. In the voiced by Hugh Jackman.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I remember enjoying it quite a bit.
Are movies with the Santa Claus better than movies just about Christmas? Because
I think so.
Because my second movie all time, probably Jingle All the Way.
That's a good one. I love that movie.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
One of the, also just a classic
And
funny
Sinbad?
movie. Yeah, Sinbad was in it. Yeah. But that's also Absentee Father.
Yep.
Also a movie, in the 90s, I'm sure.
Tom Arnold
Yeah, Tom Arnold, hilarious. But it's another one of those movies where it's about, it's Christmas, and obviously Santa doesn't exist in that world, which he does fight a whole bunch of Santa Clauses.
Santa's in the movie.
There's a bunch
Not
of them.
Not the real Santa.
No.
Mall Santa.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get Turbo Man.
Yeah,
I
Turbo
wanted Turbo Man so bad.
They made Turbo Mans for that movie. Which I didn't get, but I feel like would be a good collector's item nowadays.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of one of those unique situations where they make up the in-movie fake thing, but because the movie's successful, it becomes a real-life thing.
Yeah.
Almost kind of like Toy Story.
Top Boy.
Oh, yeah. From Home Alone. Or like I think of Toy Story where in the Andy's universe, he's got the toys, but then because the movie's popular, they become toys for us.
Yeah, which I think that might have been just the best marketing movie of all time.
Toy Story?
Yeah. Because how much product did they push after that?
Goodness.
Because even like Marvel, for instance, it's like they acquire Marvel, but it's like, how do you really quantify? Because you're buying into that license already when there's toys that already exist in the universe, right? So it's like, what's the impact that Disney brought to Marvel? It's a huge impact, right, with their cinematic universe. But then now, who knows what's going to happen with their cinematic universe?
Oh, because it's on the decline?
They're going to have to start over. I'm assuming. I don't know.
Yeah.
We kind of briefly talked about it, but you think they're going to bring back the old guys.
Yeah.
I think they just need to start fresh. Just a new everybody. It's new everything.
Is there a Santa comic book?
No.
Because there definitely should be.
But I don't know.
Santa should become the next Tim Allen Santa. That Santa specifically.
Yeah.
Because that's the real Santa. Should become the superhero of a comic book. Sarcasm and everything. Tim Allen's style. And he goes and he different adventures, using his Santa magic.
I can see it. Which his magic runs out. Did they figure out that issue? Because in the Santa Claus 2, when he was trying to find the wife, he kept using his magic every now and then, which it didn't, there was no real way to quantify how much magic he was actually using, because he would look at his watch and all of a sudden it was like a lot of it was used,
Just to twinkle some lights, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know how much magic you need to get back to the North Pole, but it seemed like he was just running through it at a rapid pace.
Listen, you got to get married in, 3 days? Is
yeah.
that the time?
It was. Yeah, he had that
week?
last month. Yeah.
Oh, was it a month?
I think it was last month,
Okay.
which he was wasting a lot of time. I feel like you just go to Vegas real quick, but no. If I was Tim Allen, I would first ask, well, what's the divorce clause? Is there?
Was it?
Because all you need is get married. Just get quick marriage, get it done. Make sure Christmas happens, because there's a lot of logistics. Instead, he left it up to a toy to figure it all out while he was off trying to get married, trying to find true love.
But again, it all worked out in the end. She's a great Mrs. Claus.
If there was ever a movie about gaslighting, it would be the Santa Claus 2. Because that's literally the entire movie. He's just gaslighting her with just magic. Just oh yeah, Santa exists. Christmas is real.
Can he say that he's Santa? He tells her at the end.
At the
and
very
he's like, listen, we
got
gotta get married.
The peak of gaslighting. It's just I'm Santa Claus.
By the way.
Yeah, but he has everyone being like, oh yeah, he's Santa Claus. Or whatever, the kid, I think, mentions it at some point. It's well, he is the real deal. He is Santa Claus. And then she's just there what? Are you kidding me?
Oh, by the way, there's a deadline, fast approaching, so it's got to happen right now.
It seems pretty sketchy. It seems like he's just trying to marry this woman for I don't know, some kind of other gain, but he needs obviously it's just to be Santa Claus, I guess, which is very selfish. Rude. He should have just been honest. Honestly, he should have just been honest. But instead, gaslight central. The worst.
No, but that's the plot of a lot of movies where you need to tell the lie because the truth sounds crazy.
It was a lot of lies though. Very elaborate. When he gave all the gifts when he went to the.
That's a great part.
Because
that is a good tip. If you're going to give gifts, especially to adults, you tap into childhood nostalgia. You get the vintage stuff. You go on eBay. You find the classic thing that you know that person's going to like and they haven't seen in 30 years.
And she just
you get that gift. they're gonna think you're Santa.
Yeah, and she believed it, hook, line, sinker. He was like, "Oh yeah, totally had time to go to eBay and just buy all these toys." He barely found out about that party, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I had time to research all of your coworkers." Terrible, terrible man, Tim Allen. The first Tim Allen was fine, and the Santa Claus, perfect, great, very wholesome. Second one, possibly a protagonist because of all of his, like, that's why I think the toy Santa was the protagonist. He was the antagonist in the second
Because
movie.
he's like a psychopath.
Yeah, yeah, he was gaslighting that woman into marrying him, and then she just, I had to say yes at the end. Terrible Tim Allen. The third movie, I guess it was fine.
Because he's sick of being Santa, wants to live the life of, what if this never happened to me?
Yeah, the escape clause.
The third
clause. Which is kind of funny because the Santa Claus 2, that's what it's called. It's just like a sequel.
Yeah.
The Santa Claus. Okay, cool. The Santa Claus 2. And then the third one, they were like, the Santa Claus 3, the escape clause. You know, they needed
Put it in the title, so you know what
they needed a qualifier.
Okay.
But I guess the series, what's the series called?
The Santa Claus is.
The Santa Claus is.
Because they have kids.
Oh. Spoiler.
That's like from the trailer.
Wait, so if that happens, do they get to be Santa?
That's part of the
Is
plot.
it like a lineage of, but who's the one?
Who's the one?
What if he only has daughters?
He has a daughter and a son with Mrs. Claus. But don't forget Charlie, because that's his other son that he still has.
Yeah, but not from Mrs. Claus.
No, correct.
So he's not eligible, obviously. Even though he knows the most and is the most qualified. It's not how it works in the kingdom, I would assume.
Well, you have to watch to find out. They explore all these rabbit holes.
Somebody's going to push Tim Allen off the roof. That's what I think is going to happen. It's going to be like his original son. What's his name?
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie's going to be like, let's go one last ride for old time's sake. Just push him right off the roof.
Now the coat's mine.
Yeah, it's like, thanks a lot, Dad.
Santa magic. Here I come. Yes, yeah. It is a good show worth watching. And 6 episodes each season, so it's not like a big commitment.
Each season?
Yeah.
There's multiple seasons?
There's season 2, yeah. That's what season 2 is with Mad Santa.
When was the first season?
Last year.
Oh, okay. Well, I missed out because I barely found out about it this year when you mentioned it. So
yeah, did not advertised heavily. I don't know how I know about this other than I'm just a huge fan of.
Yeah, they should really
Santa
work
Claus.
more on advertising the Santa Claus because I feel like that was such a good. It's not a cult classic movie. It was a huge hit.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they wouldn't.
For the longest time as a kid, I thought that's how you spell Santa Claus.
Yeah, the Santa Claus.
Clause,
like a clause in a
business
contract. Yeah.
But that's how I thought it was spelled. And then years later, I finally realized I was like, oh wait, no, that's the funny part.
Yeah,
it's a kid right over my head.
Exactly.
Yeah, over my head. I was like, Santa Claus. Yeah. It's a movie about Santa Claus.
Of course, a logical title for a movie about Santa Claus. Yes.
You know, it's another good film, Klaus, with a K.
Klaus
on Netflix, animated kids film.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be like a horror movie.
No, that's Krampus, but that's pretty good too. Krampus is a good film if you want a Christmas horror thing. That came out maybe almost 10 years ago.
Holy moly.
But it's good. It's got a few kind of celebrities in it that you would recognize. Gosh, is Rainn Wilson in that movie? He might be. I don't know.
It's his Office reference.
Yeah, because doesn't he have his Mo? What's his name?
His cousin?
His cousin. Does he play Krampus? Yeah, because he gives out.
I think so, yeah. He's like, if you've been impish or something like that, then like he hits you.
No, Klaus is good because it's another take on the origin story of Santa. And it's, I don't know, it's got a really cool aesthetic as far as like animation styles go. It's not your typical like Disney, Pixar, like looks the same. It looks a little different. And the story is quite unique in that it's like the first Santa.
Well, what other classic Santa Claus movies are there? Because every Christmas I always go back to the same films.
I don't know is worth watching.
It's like, I know people, like you mentioned Die Hard, and I think Die Hard's one of those movies where it technically qualifies as a Christmas movie because it takes place, around Christmas. But for an actual Christmas movie, it's like, what's another one?
You said Jingle All the Way, which is another.
I personally love Jingle All the Way. I think like the Home Alones are always the best. They're like Christmassy, right?
They're
like
Christmassy.
Around Christmas, but it's not like about Christmas. It just happens around Christmas.
Yeah,
it's like the holidays.
There's another movie. Did you ever see Silver Linings Playbook?
No, is that an older?
10 years. Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence. It's a good movie, and like happens, part of it I think happens around Christmas time. So that's kind of one of those. It's not a Christmas movie, but it's Christmassy. There's a Spirited, which I really like, and I think we've talked about that before. That's Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. It's a musical.
No.
About Christmas Carol. I think we've talked about this before.
Maybe. Never seen it.
But yeah, it's good. That's good.
I need to start
It's an
watching
Apple
more
film.
things on, apparently Apple's and Disney.
And Netflix and Disney, yeah.
Well, Netflix, I ejected about a year ago or so when I consumed all the good content, and now I guess they're just exploding with so much good content. So I'll have to re-up my subscription.
Yeah, and it's probably one of those things. If you cancel it now, well, let's say you sign up for Netflix, and then you go to cancel it, I feel like they'll give you a deal.
Well,
They got to be one of those companies like Adobe, like all of them.
I
They're
could
like,
just go
don't
in-
leave.
Yeah, I could just go in for a month,
That's right.
watch the content, and bail.
Get out.
Get $30 for my 1 month of 4K streaming and bounce.
Yeah. Or is there any good Christmas movies out, that like new ones? There was Saw. They did Saw 10 for Halloween.
Oh,
Not for Christmas.
Saw 10
I'm like gonna
Christmas.
go back in my mind. Saw 10 was for Halloween. Is there anything new for Christmas this year? Like all the kids' films are, like Trolls and nothing too specific.
You know what's weird is that I watch far less new content because there's so much like independent creator content out there now. And I thought I had Hulu on the other day, and after you've watched your show, it just automatically starts playing other content, and it started playing America's Funniest Home Videos, like old school 4x3
Bob Saget's.
AFV old stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it was Bob Saget. It was the guy right after him, but it was still in that very old format.
Okay.
But it was still like 4x3, very old stuff. And in my mind, I'm watching it, and I'm just like, man, this is TikTok before TikTok kind of thing.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's just footage of average things happening, and then, of course, the commentary over it, and then music and everything. I'm just like, man, it's like people have not changed because people still consume that content just like on their own device. But it's just interesting how it's like, man, this is that just modernized, right? And everyone's creating their own content. But I don't know if that's a bad thing because I miss out on all these new shows because I'm like, should I be watching the Santa Clauses? Should I be investing more of my time in Disney Plus as opposed to YouTube, and independent creators? Because no independent creators coming up with the Santa Claus movie, It's like, where should I live? Should I live more in the, reality and actual creator content, or in, I guess, studio created content?
A little bit of both, probably.
Yeah.
The Santa Claus is a unique case where it's such a seasonal time of year kind of thing that this is the time of year where I'd watch that. I'm not going to watch it in June or July.
Which I would
gonna be
argue
December.
that the Santa Claus and Jingle All the Way, my two favorite Christmas movies, can be watched at any time of year.
It could be, but they're
it's
best
just such a good
enjoyed
movie.
in December.
December 1st is when I usually watch one of those
Flip 'em on,
movies.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The new content just has me.
Yeah, and what's funny
Too many
about America's
subscriptions.
Funniest Home Videos is I remember being a kid and, thinking, okay, we got to try to make funny home videos because we're going to send them
just
off.
send it.
And then we could win.
$10,000.
They're incredible, life-changing,
That was
right?
a huge amount of money.
And it was like to get famous off of America's Funniest Home Videos was like my dream.
Yeah.
It was that and probably winning, what was the Legends of the Hidden Temple or something like that. All those kids kind of game show win prizes. You could get a trip to Universal Studios Orlando or you can come to Nickelodeon, blah, blah, blah. And get slimed. I can't wait.
There's a series on Hulu talking about The Simpsons. So it's like a docu-series, and it's 7 or 8 episodes, and just documenting the process of Fox becoming its own studio, and then them putting money into Matt. How do you pronounce his last name? Groening, whatever. The guy who created The Simpsons.
Oh, okay, yes.
Because originally he had his own stuff. I think it was Life in Hell or something like that. His own cartoon that he was going to pitch Fox, because Fox at first was the edgy network, and they were just competing with CBS, all the big ones. And he was like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give away my good stuff. So then he quickly drew these this family based on his own family, right? The Simpsons. And his family's obviously not The Simpsons, but he created this family called The Simpsons. And he pitched that, and he was like, they were like, all right, cool. And then it started as like a little, segment of another show, and then ultimately became one of the longest running sitcoms of all time. But it's interesting how even back then, Fox was realizing, they were like, people like edgy content, or, something that's unpolished, something like that, which, I mean, now we've come so far, right? Where everyone's creating their own content in their own way, which is great. But now when you talk about the Santa Clauses and all this stuff, it's like you're going back to, and this is my biggest gripe with the Santa Claus original, where it was like the good, sarcastic Tim Allen humor, and then he changes in the Santa Claus 2 and 3, where it becomes like less of Tim Allen the comedian and more, I'm just going to read the lines that are put on the paper. Mm-hmm. So again, is it worth investing my time into this series where it's more of just, a script, and it's just not as genuine? It's like, I don't know. Is it worth it? Because I like more of like a real.
It's kind, not that. Nothing is like.
I want a gritty Santa Claus.
Yes, and the first one is gritty. It even has like the film texture. It's that gritty. Mm-hmm. The show is somewhere in between.
It's just clean.
The show is clean.
Very clean, bright.
Bright. Yeah. Yep. It's not dark and moody. Mm-hmm. It's not grounded in realism. But there are some witty jokes here and there, and the way it taps in and ties all the lore together and continues to answer those questions you said, right? Of like, well, that Santa fell off the roof. He waved. So what does that mean?
Something about it, man. He knew.
They keep going. And I like the messaging and some of the morals that they cover as far as it comes to like, Christmas spirit and what Christmas means and all that kind of stuff. It's fun, I think.
Yeah. Well, I would appreciate it if they went back to the original stylings of Tim Allen, because he was hilarious.
Yeah.
But I'll have to give it a watch because I am curious.
All those movies of that era, like Mrs. Doubtfire comes to mind. Mm-hmm. Robin Williams dressing up as a old British nanny so that he can spend time with his kids. Mm-hmm. And then the hijinks ensue. Yeah. Like, it's a liar. Jim Carrey, he can't tell a lie.
Right.
Because of a wish his kid made on his birthday. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Like these kind of strange, outlandish concepts, but then played through in reality of like, okay, how would this actually, what would happen and how would things play out, is just so fun to watch in a very like, let's take a kind of crazy, kooky idea and put it in reality. Tim Allen becomes Santa. Then what happens next? And not even just what happens next, what happens over the next year, which, the kids at the park coming up to sit on Santa's lap on the park bench, or, the reindeer following him. Mm-hmm. Are they at the zoo or at the park somewhere?
Yeah, they were like walking through a park and then they just happen to be trailing. Yeah.
It's just fun ideas that people took the time to think up, and like, what would it be like if there was a lawyer who couldn't tell a lie?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's a great concept. Yeah. All because of a kid's birthday wish.
I don't think they do that anymore. They spend all the money trying to make a Marvel movie.
It's true.
It's like, this needs to work because this is our full $400 million. But I feel like you could make a lot more content if you just divvied it up. Give $10 million to a whole bunch of creators.
I guess a similar movie that did quite well, and so maybe there's something to this. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Is a crazy multiverse concept, but executed in reality of like, okay, so what would this actually be like if there was this wild multiverse, but it's just through this, regular family and their life. Did surprisingly well. Made a bunch of money, very successful, very popular.
Yeah.
That's what we need more of.
I think so. I like the idea of creating like movies, right, but an experience that never happened before, like an actual unique idea. Like, I don't like remakes. I'm not a huge fan, but it is interesting when you do take like an animated film and turn it into a live action. I still think that's interesting, but at what cost? Because that kind of ruins the original. It's like, I would have much rather watched the animated Lion King, than the new one.
Or you could have spent your budget on something else that was new, that was like the next big thing.
Yeah, attempt something new, which, I don't know. I guess there's a lot to be said about the other things that they have in there. Like, so Disney has like their theme parks. So is it in their best interest to keep the theme park of like Indiana Jones? So like they keep making Indiana Jones movies because they're like, well, this whole attraction exists. Let's keep this universe alive. So let's keep making the same, movie over and over again. instead of inventing a new one and then, potentially changing the park because it's like a new series, a new, I don't know, something new. I want something new.
Well, so I mentioned it before, but another Christmas set movie is Hook, which is another one of those great 90s concepts of like, what if Peter Pan grew up?
Yeah.
What would happen? And to think it's almost, there's like generations of filmmaking. And we think back to some of the stuff that's being regurgitated now. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, like you said, superhero movies. Like it's all this stuff from like, I don't know, 60s, 70s, 80s, that time period, where it was just like a concept. Star Wars is just like a space sci-fi adventure movie. There's no like what if component.
Yeah.
Like what if, and then I think...
Yeah, a lot of the stories that they tell are in between. It's like, well, we told this story here in this movie and this story here in this movie, but we never told you what happened in between.
Yeah.
And then they're bringing that to life, especially with the Disney Plus content is a lot of that. So like a lot of like the Marvel universe is in these series that you don't see at the theaters. But if you watch the series, it helps you, watching the movies. But like I think the Captain Marvel was a situation where the Disney show had a lot to do with the actual movie. So if you watch the show, you'd go into the movie knowing these characters a lot more. But
which is almost homework if you have
it. Yeah, exactly. Which I think is also an issue with keeping these, these series alive, because you get to a point where if you're just a kid, you have so much homework to go through, right? Like you're saying, it's like, how many hours do you need to invest in watching these films before you can finally watch the latest one and it actually makes sense to you? But, it's like you only have 2 hours or 3 hours. I don't know. 3 hours is a lot, though. Like we talked about, it's 3 hours a little too much for one movie.
Yeah.
But series are nice. I like watching series, but is that going to be like the death of, theaters, the theater experience?
No, probably not. I mean, they'll always probably exist. Books still exist, even though, that's like an old technology.
Yeah.
Now we've got cameras
I wonder if you could get people to go to a theater if you charged less, but they only, let's take the series of like Low-Key, for instance.
Okay.
And then they put it in theaters. So like you're watching the series in a theater, but at a reduced price.
For a whole day?
What do you mean?
Or you're going once a week? Because it's a show.
Anytime you want. Like they'll just have screenings of Low-Key, season 1.
Oh, I'm here, episode 4. I didn't see episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like they'll have a block because films are only in theaters for so long.
Okay.
So it's like this week we're showing episode like season 1
every night.
Every night,
an episode of.
So like
Low-Key.
at certain hours, you're like, all right, I can go see this episode. Oh, I missed this episode. I'm gonna go and show like this. I could see that being a thing for theaters
as a novelty,
because
maybe.
The way they're filming them now, everything is so cinematic.
Yeah.
It's might as well be in the theater, but it's not. It's at your home. So like, what's the difference between having a high budget production season on an Apple TV or Disney, whatever, but then you're like, well, I'm gonna go to the theater and pay a lot of money, a whole month's worth of my subscription to watch 1-2 hour film? Is it that much different? Production wise? I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the viewing habits, because they do that with old movies, right? They'll re-release. They're like, oh, now playing in the theater exclusively Jaws. See it on the big screen again, or Back to the Future. It's back.
Yeah. It's very nostalgic.
It's very nostalgic. Yeah, you can kind of, there's something to be gotten out of that, I suppose. But to take a TV show, like I'm thinking like my favorite TV show, Breaking Bad. Would I go watch 5 seasons of Breaking Bad in a movie theater?
I'm not saying they're filming it all at once. You're not just gonna binge at the theater, but you could.
You could. I mean, there's experiences they do that with like Lord of the Rings. I think they'll play, back to back to back. You can go watch a marathon of Lord of the Rings at the movie theater.
Yeah, I'm not saying marathons are the worst. Like when we were growing up, I think they had marathons on certain channels where it was like AMC, and it was just
TBS, TNT
all day. You're just like, yeah, I get it. I'm all set, actually. Like I've seen it.
Oh, what's the Christmas? Speaking of Christmas, that's the famous one. A Christmas Story.
Oh yeah.
They would do 24 hours of Christmas Story, and I don't even like that movie
because I'm pretty sure
can't stand it.
Like the history behind that is they the rights passed on it. Like no one renewed the rights because it was like a flop originally.
Okay.
And then it became a cult classic because they just aired it all the time.
Forced it to be a classic.
They forced it. So but again, you're sitting in a situation where, you're trying to fill the time because you have this network, and nowadays it's easy to fill time because everyone's creating content, but it's just choosing what you want to watch.
Make it a special. Did you grow up with the animated stop motion Rudolph and Frosty and
yes, yeah.
those movies? Have you tried to watch those recently?
Not recently.
Oh, I can't do it.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
The audio quality, I think, is what does it. It has that. What are those made in the 60s?
Very clunky. Just not polished. Is that what you're saying?
They hit a frequency, a pitch in every voice, that grating frequency.
Oh, yeah.
Where it just sounds so awful, and I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah. I mean, those definitely are impressive movies, like stop motion.
Oh, the effort, yeah.
It's effort. I still think, those are still extremely well done, and it's impressive when they do it. But again, maybe an art form that could be lost. It's I don't know if it's worth it anymore. It's cool. Miniatures are cool. I'm a big fan of miniatures, but at the same time, it's the amount of effort it takes to tell that story in that medium, it might be a little much. I don't know if you're going to get the ROI.
Well, a lot of times effort doesn't mean that it's good.
Yeah.
And I think that's misunderstood a lot of times because I mean, you can like those movies or not. I'm not really talking about those now. It's the idea that, people tried really hard and they spent a lot of time and they put a lot of hard work into something. So it needs to be respected for that. And there's a level of respect I would give to something where yes, everyone's effort and, good job.
Yeah, everyone
pat on the back.
Participation.
But just because someone tried hard doesn't mean the result is good. It is a separate thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's my issue with award shows in general.
What do you mean?
So, you're rewarding something just for being new a lot of the times nowadays. So I feel like the Oscars, it seemed like there was a portion of time, especially in the early 2000s, when the newest movie with the newest VFX always won because it just happened to be the newest technology. So it's oh yeah, here's the award. You have the newest technology. So, which I feel is a bad way to win. It's just I could afford it, so therefore I won. That's not a good way to be at the top, It's I feel I mean, as much as I hate scripts and story, it has to be a better story, right? Because visually, looking back at the Scorpion King or whatever, you look at those VFX and you're that was kind of terrible, even at that time it was terrible. Which knowing the history now after it's all come out, it's it was a rushed project, so it's of course it wasn't going to be great, but it's I don't know, it's. And
you're talking about the VFX, you're talking specifically about the Mummy 2 version of the Scorpion King, because the Scorpion King doesn't have, it's just the Rock.
The Rock, yeah,
the whole time. He's not
the Mummy, Scorpion King, the Rock.
The Scorpion King in the Mummy 2.
Yes, yeah, the bad animated Rock Scorpion King. That's what I'm talking about.
Got to be extra specific, because I remember watching the Scorpion King, the movie, and enjoying it because it was kind of silly and kind of fun.
Yeah, which another series where the Mummy, the original Mummy,
so good,
fantastic movie,
gritty,
loved it, gritty. It was all the things you thought about Egypt, right? Mummies, all the craziness, and then the Mummy 2 started getting pretty ridiculous, and then the rest of the series was just even more. But now again, all the acting originally hilarious, sarcastic humor, dry.
True.
Yeah. And then they got too much success, and then I feel like anything, it's you get so much success, and then all of a sudden you get all these cooks who are coming into the kitchen, and then they're
making it bland.
This is what you should do, and then all of a sudden it becomes a lot flatter because everyone's polishing, and then you get a smooth surface, and then it just rolls off of everyone's back. You know what I mean? But.
That is true. The Mummy is that kind of franchise where the first one is just really good. It's kind of almost inspired by Indiana Jones sort of thing.
Yeah. Which, I don't know, I feel like most movies, the sequel is never great. There's very few sequels that are a good sequel. Home Alone 2 is the best. The best sequel of all time. I will go down.
Which is just they do the same thing again.
Yeah, Lost in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite trilogy and sequence of movies, I think, is probably Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. From 1, 2, and 3, they each tell a uniquely compelling story while all being connected.
It happened because of this. Like it wasn't just that this happened and then this happened. Yeah, it's a good reasoning for why. Which I feel like, I don't know, Doc Brown could have been a little more forefront with the information, and it would have solved a lot of issues that they had.
Like what?
Anything. Like he could have just told Marty a whole bunch of stuff instead of being like, just don't worry about it. Just stand here. And then he like leaves. It's like he could give a little bit more exposition as far as like
in the very beginning. Is there
the very beginning of every movie, because it all starts out with hurry, we gotta go, we gotta get in. And like in the second movie, he brings his girlfriend.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Probably shouldn't have, right? Just leave her in the alley. She'll be fine, or whatever, you know? It's just like, what are you doing, dude? But
he's wacky.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good musical.
I've never seen the musical.
Back to the Future.
Want to.
It's so I saw it on Broadway 6 months ago. It's really good. It's touring next year, so we can go see Back to the Future the musical.
I would love to see that.
Probably next year sometime. Yeah. It's really good.
Well, the only big musical I've ever seen is The Book of Mormon.
And I have not seen that.
The Book of Mormon was hilarious.
I've only heard good things.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's every year or so that it's out. I don't know if is it still out? I don't even know if it's still out.
I think so, yeah.
But they have new talent in there every year or so, but
that's one of those I wish, because they did this with Hamilton, and the only way I've seen Hamilton is because they like filmed it and then put it on Disney Plus, of course. But I feel like that's one of the, there's certain musicals that get to the point where they should just probably be filmed and made into a special.
Well, you get the certain like Tony Award winners that if they're the best at that role, you should probably leave it there. It's like once you find the best, it's like we should probably call it quits here, because otherwise you end up with like less and less, I don't know, equivalency of greatness. And then it's just people attempting to be that original character, because once you have the best character, or like the Iron Man example, right? It's like you have Robert Downey Jr. Like he is Iron Man now. Like you can't have a new Iron Man unless everybody's new. That's the only way you can do it, right? Yeah. Like you can have a cameo, like that'd be cute, I guess, if they brought him back as a cameo role for something. But it's a situation where it's like, if you're gonna, I don't know, I think it'd be too much of an investment for Disney to recast all of the original people. It's like, well, take it slow, hire people who are great actors, and then maybe a cameo, maybe.
There you go, yeah.
If you can afford it.
Yeah. I don't know what determines what musicals get filmed, because I remember growing up, Cats the musical there was a filmed version of that you could watch at home, and
then they made it into a movie.
Well, yeah, terrible. But I'm pretty sure that's how I saw it. I think my uncle had it on Laserdisc or something like that. But there's quite a few musicals that you wouldn't get to experience if they're not captured in that format, because what do you like? Some people don't have access,
and especially musicals too. It's one performance usually, unless they, obviously if they're going to film it, they probably run it a few times, and then they compile it all. But when you go live, it's that one take. Is it going to be good? Who knows? It's tonight's show,
and that's kind of the fun of it. I feel like there's a difference between watching it on your TV or going, and so the value is there. I think there maybe is the perception of, if we film it, we put it on Netflix, or we film it, put it out there, that people aren't going to come anymore. But I don't think that's true. I think.
No. I mean, it's also kind of like live music in a way, where if you go to see your favorite band, it kind of has like the good thing about going to see a live performance of like a band that you enjoy is the experience of being there. But if you've listened to a song over and over and over again, the notes, and what it should be. So as like an audience member, it's like you kind of get turned off if, the artist takes a breath when, they should be singing a line and they're like, it's not as perfect as maybe you'd want it to be. And that happens more and more if you see bands that are a little bit older, a little bit older, a little bit older. But you got to see that reunion tour, right?
Yeah, people pay a lot of money.
Blink 182.
I pay a lot of money here. Dust off the cobwebs. Yeah. Bring those people back. I think the Santa Claus actually is the perfect candidate for a musical. turn that movie.
Turn it into a musical.
Turn it into a musical.
I think
Absolutely.
it could be great, yeah. Oh yeah, especially like the comedic stylings, right? I think you could just play all in the realm of Santa Claus 1, not the rest of them.
Yeah.
I don't want the rest of the people.
The original movie, Putting on the Coat. That could be a song. Putting on the Coat. Start mapping this thing out right now.
I could see it.
No.
They'll need Tim Allen though. If they don't have Tim Allen,
yeah.
Tim Allen, I think would be a great original Santa falling off the roof. Like that'd be a good Easter egg.
That's a good
Maybe
idea.
Just wave, and then Tim Allen's gone. He's gone.
It's the new guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what. So Back to the Future, the musical, they don't have obviously Michael J. Fox or why am I drawing the blank on Doc Brown? Christopher Lloyd.
Oh yeah.
But they have characters who kind of embody and sound and act like the characters, and even Crispin Glover, who plays the dad in Back to the Future. They have a guy who's very good at acting that way. So I think you could find something similar for the Santa Claus. You get characters that are kind of look-alikes or sound-alikes, and you come up with music, for the North Pole, for there's a song like delivering the gifts or whatever. Lots of fun things.
I think the set pieces could be. I don't know if they could probably like resurrect like their original set pieces, because even in the first one, it looked like a set, like that would be on a play, like in a play. So it would be interesting. I would go see that.
I'd go see it. Yeah. There's the musical number where he's transforming. He keeps shaving the beard and it grows back, and they do some fun special effects, practical effects on stage where he keeps getting fatter and skinnier. Oh
yeah.
Or him running on a treadmill,
going into the chimney for the first time. The one that like was the pipe.
Oh,
because he was like, "There's no chimney." And like, "Yeah, there is." They're like, and then
the bag lifts him up.
Then he like just gets slurped in. But man, good times. Love Christmas.
Yeah, make it a musical, and I will go see it happily. I think that's probably a common trend. I think Back to the Future has been successful, the musical, and they could do that. Dig up some old, like Jumanji, the original, because I know they've remade it and then made a sequel.
Yeah.
Neither as good as the original. Dig that back up, turn it into a musical.
Yeah.
Jumanji.
Jingle All the Way, the perfect
The musical. That'd be great.
I could see that with Turbo Man.
Yeah.
And all those characters with the parade. Like, such a great scene.
I've got a bomb.
yeah.
Put that in your musical and see what they do. So many good. Liar, Liar, the musical. Hook, the musical.
Yeah. All those exaggerated performances.
Mrs. Doubtfire, the musical.
I could see it.
I need to see it now.